and the beauty of it, which you learn to see past the blood and guts eventually.
I hate it. It's bad enough to suffer a head injury unintentionally, but the object of this sport is to inflict injury on the other person.
For the Love of the Game is presented this evening by Pepsi, it's got what it takes, by Gillette Sensor, for the best shave a man can get, and by Canadian Airlines, now flying out of Terminal 3 in Toronto.
For many of us, the world of sport offers us a refuge from the increasing complexities of our society, in which it is getting more difficult to separate right from wrong, the good guys from the bad guys. And perhaps out of all sport, the most simple and primal is boxing, direct combat between two men. Boxing can act as a very strange, unusual, powerful magnet. It can attract or repel you. More often than not, it can do both at the same time. We are not here to make a case for or against the sport of boxing. Instead, we're going to present the elements and the people of the sport in a way rarely seen by outsiders. During this production, we ran into situations and met people that had a very profound effect on us. Because in boxing, when the bell rings in some way, we all become participants.
The recession watch continues with news of a sharp drop in housing values from this time last year.
Fear, no real such thing. I mean, there's nervousness before you get in the ring, you know, before you fight.
I was scared to death, actually. I never had any fear. I don't remember any fear of hurting the other guy. Fear of getting hurt, yes.
I was never afraid of anyone. I've always felt that if I was in condition, I felt I could lick wherever I was going to fight.
My first fight was, I was very nervous. I'm not used to all the people watching you and the noise in the crowd. I was scared stiff, actually.
Being a true professional, you got to learn to control that. And when you get in there, then all the fear is left outside the ring.
Most of the time, it is your own imagination that scares you.
When you're sitting in a corner and like before the fight starts, you're like kind of nervous. You think about like what's going to happen when you're fighting him. You think about like what you're going to do to him, and you think about like what he might do to you, the consequences of fighting and stuff.
You get nervous. It's almost like going for your driver's license. You know, it's something you need, and you know you have to do it, but it's pretty scary. You have to have a lot of nerve to step in the ring.
Get the guy, knock him out. And the guy was going down.
To enter the world of boxing is to enter a world full of extremes and paradox. From a world heavyweight title fight that will gross over $70 million to the many local boxing clubs that struggle to meet their monthly expenses. From the heavyweight champions of the world, who are the highest paid athletes in all of sport and often the most recognizable human beings on the planet, to the 98% of all professional fighters who wallow in total obscurity and don't make enough from boxing to reach the poverty level. Despite the enormous sums of money associated with some world title fights, compared to major sports like basketball, baseball, football, and hockey, boxing is still considered small time. There are very few people across the country who could name even one of the 10 current Canadian champions, amateur or professional. And there are maybe 5 or 6 individuals outside the ring who are capable of earning a full-time living from the sport. In the United States, though still comparatively small, the infrastructure of boxing is much more developed. The first stop on our journey through the world of boxing was in what many consider to be its Emerald City, Las Vegas, Nevada. In professional boxing, this is where the rainbow leads, and many fighters hope to find their pot of gold. Almost every week, there's a professional fight card in the city. Also headquartered here is one of the most successful businessmen in boxing, Bob Arum, whose company Top Rank is considered the most active in the world. Twice a month, they produce a live television fight card for ESPN, an all-sports network in the United States.
We receive a fee from ESPN, a rights fee. Out of that rights fee, we then have to pay the fighters, pay the officials, etc. So we use ESPN, those shows, as a source of revenue to keep our operation going, but also as a means to develop talent for the bigger events.
If Bob Arum is the brains of Top Rank, then Bruce Trampler is the heart. He's what's known in the business as a matchmaker. While Arum will put together the main event, Trampler's responsibility is to find opponents for the other top-ranked fighters on the undercard.
What you want to do is put on fights that you want to see. If you were a fan, if a matchmaker is a fan, you put on a fight that you want to see. And if you follow that rule of thumb, generally you're going to get lucky and have a, you know, it's kind of like the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them, well, make a match that you would buy a ticket for. That's what you want to do.
At Top Rank, the art of matchmaking has gone high-tech.
And we have this for approximately 15,000 fighters around the world. We can call up 15,000. So we can call up virtually anybody. You name a fighter and I'll punch him up for you.
Bruce Trampler has over 20 years' experience in boxing and is candid in his assessment of the sport.
There's very few boxers who can make a living financially out of boxing. They all have to have other jobs for the most part. And no, it's a very terrible business. But it's a great sport.
In the United States, boxing is a thriving business. However, right now, the same cannot be said for the sport in this country.
Unfortunately, it has been stagnant. We just don't have the names.
Right now, there hasn't been a whole lot happening in Canada, nothing major.
I think it's definitely in a slump, in that there are not many live boxing cards to go to see in Canada.
Part of the reason we don't have fighters in Canada is that we don't have that situation. You don't have people desperate for their next meal, and you have a social welfare system in Canada, which you don't have in Mexico.
We don't have the promoters they have in England. Every town you go into England, they have a promoter who concentrates on that town.
With managers and seconds and trainers, and we got most probably 2,000 license holders. Canada's got 50.
The problem in Canada is we don't have enough good trainers.
The best trainers in the world are in the United States. Top Rank has them, Ringside has them.
Canadian boxers, they got the skill. It's not the boxers, it's the trainers over there.
The sport in England is run by professionals, and the sport in Canada is run by a load of amateurs. Civil servants.
I don't think there are a lot of advertisers who want to associate their name with a brutal or a violent sport. Boxing is a violent sport. Boxing, though, is heavily, heavily viewed. So there's the irony.
Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, any of those major centers can do well with a fight if they have somebody they can believe in.
I think Canada is waiting for a hero. We need a hero.
They just hunger for a white champion here.
Canadians generally are white, and they will follow a white let's take a white heavyweight more down the road than I think they will follow a black heavyweight.
A black fighter has to have a lot more than talent to make it.
We got a real good fighter out of Montreal who I'm really high on. His name is Otis Grant. This kid is for real. He can fight. He can fight with the best in the world, and he's being handled very, very well. But the kid can't draw flies, and I suspect that's because most Canadians can't identify with him.
I don't think my brother and I receive enough support from minority groups in the black community here in Montreal.
In boxing, what matters is how many asses you can put in the seats, and that's the bottom line of it.
You give me a blue-eyed blonde boy that can fight just a little bit, half as good as Otis Grant, and I'll take him to a title before Otis will.
Well, I'll tell you, if we get another great white hope in Canada, you watch those sponsors come out of the closet. They have to do one of two things. They have to leave Canada, or they have to bring in the trainer and the sparring partners to make them great.
Shows happen very, very infrequently in this country, so you've got to go to the States to fight most of the time.
If you stay here with the sparring you have here and with the quality of trainers you have here, you can only go to a certain level.
Canada, while a separate country, is in effect, for economic purposes, so linked to the United States, particularly in the sport of boxing, that world-class fighters from Canada, would have to come to the United States to ply their trade.
If you hook up with Bob Arum runs a show every week in Las Vegas, and you're going to get on that show as often as you need to get on that show. He's going to promote larger fights, and you're going to get on undercards, so you're going to get some exposure.
There is a draw to the States, and to a degree, rightfully so. I mean, they see the big-time promoters, of course, the Bob Arums of Top Rank, Dan Duva of Main Events, and Don King. I mean, if you want to sell your soul, because you don't go down there without a price.
We wanted to find out for ourselves exactly what price does a Canadian boxer pay for following the rainbow across the border. We joined the story of 22-year-old Scotty Olson of Edmonton just after he represented Canada in the 1988 Olympics, where he lost in the quarterfinals.
Hi, my name is Scotty Olson. I'm from Filter Queen. I was selling vacuums after the Olympics all the way up to the summer of 1989. You just give the wand a quarter of a turn, and it slides nicely underneath. Nothing was really happening professionally in Canada, so I drove down to Vegas. It was very hot, no air conditioning. I dressed up in my best suit. I brought a videotape of myself, all my best knockouts in the amateurs, and I tried to sell myself.
This little dwarf walks in, and he says he wants to be a fighter and all that, and at first I thought it was a joke, you know, and I said, you know, get out of here, will you? Then he pulls out a scrapbook and he shows me all these clippings, and he was very, very polite. He was such a nice person that I started feeling terrible, like I've already abused this kid, you know, jeez. And a guy named Bruce Mouse Strauss is sitting around, and he says, was that kid from Edmonton? I used to fight in Edmonton. And he said, that's a great fight town. I love it up there. He says, if this kid's from Edmonton, he can be a big attraction there. And we brought him back in here and say, okay, let's sit down and talk, you know, and we started hatching out plans where he would live here. He'd train with Sandoval, who's a former bantamweight champion, and Mouse would manage him, and we'd start promoting him, and that's actually what happened. I've worked for Top Rank for 11 years, and I've been here in the Vegas office for 3 years. I can't think of another walk-on. I'm telling you, I chase guys out of here. I like him more as a person than as a fighter, and considering how highly I hold him in regard as a boxer, that says a lot. He's a terrific guy.
They took me in, and they're like a family to me.
I'm being very sincere with you. That's how I feel about him. He's like the whole office staff loves him. He's like our adopted son here. You know?
One of the things that impressed us about Scotty Olson was his acute awareness of the hardcore business side of boxing.
Boxing professionally is entertainment. Promotional companies will look for in a fighter would be,
does he have crowd-pleasing potential?
His ability to turn on the crowd.
Whether he can get fans to come out when he has a fight.
There's a lot of fighters in Canada who are excellent fighters. Same here in the United States, all over the world. But there's only a select few that really have the potential to be marketed and brought along well and made into an attraction for a certain company to make money.
He pulls in fans here. They love him on television. The announcers love him. We get fan mail for him. And not many guys, you know, have that kind of popularity.
I think those things are certain aspects that Top Rank is really planning on cashing in on. And I hope to bring not only myself but Top Rank a lot of exposure through what I can do in my career.
Scotty is like a member of the family, and so he's been around us enough to really absorb what this business is about. He's a very smart young man.
So how much does a boxer like Scotty actually make at this stage in his career?
Well, money is not something I really get into very often.
When asked, he was reluctant to talk about it. But eventually, he came around.
I'm fighting, you know, once a month, for 15 months now.
Not only physically but mentally.
I'm making, you know, minimum. I'm making $5,000 for my fights. All my accommodations, food and things like that are taken care of for me. The money that I make for my fights, I get paid immediately after. That money is divided among Mouse, Richie, and myself, and we divide it all, and I get my percentage, and you know, that goes in my pocket, and I send some home back to my mom and stuff like that.
The standard fee for a trainer is 10% of his fighter's purse. The manager usually gets 33%. So out of a $5,000 purse, Scotty would receive about $2,800 a month.
But they don't know that I would fight for free. Yeah, I love fighting so much, I'd fight for free, but they want to pay me for doing something that I really love to do. And I think it's really humorous, because to actually be earning a living and getting paid for a job that you love to do, a lot of people aren't in that position.
But Scott Olson has tremendous potential for much bigger paydays in the not-too-distant future.
After May 23rd, assuming everything goes well, we're going to shut him down and see how the negotiations are going for the Dave McCauley title fight.
Scotty is very, very close to being matched for the a world title against Dave McCauley of Ireland, and we think that's a fight that he'll be able to win.
Then if all goes well, the next major step in his career would be another world title fight with Michael Carbajal from Phoenix, Arizona. In their first amateur encounter back in 1987, Olson beat Carbajal. But then, in the 1988 Olympic Games, it was Michael Carbajal who ended Scott Olson's dreams of an Olympic medal. Carbajal is also represented by Top Rank. The rumors are, if these two meet in a world title fight, it could be the first $1 million purse in flyweight history.
I think that each guy wants to fight the other guy, and when the time is propitious, that means when each of them could be paid a very substantial purse, then the time for that fight will have arrived.
I don't want to see these kids fight each other as a friend of both guys, but as a matchmaker, it's my job to try and elevate both guys to the point where that fight makes a lot of sense for them to fight.
Oh, but now look at them work.
Since they are professional fighters, and that's what they do, they get paid to hit other guys, then the only thing I can do to help them out is say, boys, you're going to fight, but let's try and make you as much money as we can. And when it's over, let's all still be friends.
I'm just hoping that through my success I can bring even more excitement and just create more of a demand for fighters to have opportunities in Canada.
The first hit that I get hit doesn't really feel good because it kind of hurts.
But after you've been hit a couple of times and you've learned to relax, you've learned to deal with it, you know what to do when you're hit. Half the power's gone out of the punch if you slip it or if you ride it out correctly. The initial time, it's like close your eyes, flinch, and you take the full brunt of the force against you.
The first time I got hit, went through my head was, I don't want to get hit again. So I developed the boxer style so I can take as few punches as totally possible.
For a minute, you lost a touch of reality, just for a sec. Just for a second.
Oh, I got hit a lot. First fight was head spinning.
First time I got hit was Trouble Burby. Feel like somebody parked a truck in your chest.
You can't show any expression that you're hurt in any way. Because once you show an expression, your opponent gets, it's like an instant boost you give to him.
I got hit really good, and all I thought about was how I'm going to kill the other guy, right? He just got me really mad, and I wanted to beat him. And I did.
A lot of guys quit after the first time they've been really tagged.
All your eyes and that, the swelling is just the blood pulsating more. It's like a pounding sensation. I guess like a headache. It's a migraine all over your body.
As time goes by, they learn it's a part of reality. You have to overcome this, so they continue.
One of the very dramatic elements of boxing is that a fighter's career can turn on a single match, sometimes on a single punch. Recently, Canadian featherweight champion Barrington Francis had the opportunity to fight for the Commonwealth title here at the Royal York Hotel in Toronto. It was a very unusual evening, a predominantly male black tie fundraising event for the Shaw Festival Theatre at Niagara-on-the-Lake in Ontario. But it gave us the opportunity to follow a fighter on the day of the most important fight of his career.
This contest, 12 rounds for the Commonwealth Featherweight Championship.
Between the champion Modus Napuni from Kenya and the challenger is Barrington Francis from Toronto, Canada. Okay, it's your turn. 125.
Now, you say you're going to be a little heavier going into the ring for tonight's fight.
About 5-6 pounds. It's scallopini and spaghetti.
Is this the only meal you'll have before the fight?
No.
The Commonwealth Featherweight Champion weighing in at
123 and a half.
Anytime somebody talks to me about Africans, I have nightmares. When they come to fight, they're in tremendous condition.
What color of trunks will the champion? Red?
P. I love to see if their heart is normal.
And the challenger?
Black. How are you feeling?
Feel very good.
If their lungs are clear, any other evidence of recent illness or disease?
CLT, NPBU, VHT, OKP.
And fit to box, fit for strenuous sports activity.
Can you determine whether or not they're fit in such a short time?
By this, and by the yearly examination, and by the results of the tests that we have, I can tell they're both in excellent health.
This is the biggest fight of Barrington's life.
Boxer?
He's a terrific body puncher, apparently. He's going to come right at you.
The fight will take place tonight at 9 o'clock.
Thanks a lot. The fight is tomorrow, right?
Tonight. Ran up on a Bible.
And I was told last night he found Jesus.
Your boxing and your religion, is that not a conflict?
No, it is not a conflict because, see, you have a lot of people doing worse things in this world. Even reverends and preachers taking things from, the church and, for their own benefits. And I think that's brutal.
Barrington is over here, right?
Right there.
Right here.
Any other day after today is just a bonus. But today's the end of my life. I gotta do the best I can.
His career is almost on the line as far as any type of international aspirations and a lot of dough.
My mind feels good. My body feels good. And if I lose, I just feel like I just quit.
The Commonwealth title fight presented us with an opportunity to conduct a little experiment. We wanted to see the reaction of various people to a boxing match. Our small informal test group included women who had never seen a fight before, live or on television. We also included men who had seen it on television but had never been to a live event. Also in our audience were people who had been to the fights before, but because of their occupation, we were interested in their impressions.
I don't know what to expect in terms of people, in terms of the physical reactions of how the individuals are taking the physical abuse, I suppose.
I've never seen a fight live, and I'm wondering whether I'll enjoy it as much this close, where it's clear that these guys are really hurting each other.
If people want to do silly things to themselves, provided they don't hurt other people, it's perfectly fine with me.
It's also fascinating. I mean, it's almost a surreal surrounding here with the corporate elite of Toronto watching a blood sport.
should he win tonight, his life will change. His life will really change.
Kenyan boxers are the best boxers in Africa.
They all want to fight in Toronto, you know, just to show the people, hey, finally.
I know what he's going to do, and I know what Barrington must do to win this fight. If we back up Napunya, Barrington will be the new British Commonwealth featherweight champion. If Napunya moves Barrington back, Napunya wins the fight.
You take more energy out of yourself by missing than you do by connecting.
Barrington's going to have to somehow find a way to back Napunya up.
Well, you don't know if you've hurt him, that's what it is. He's one of those guys that he holds his hands up, his hands doesn't move, his expression doesn't change.
I was also impressed at how hard they punch.
The actual sound of the impact of gloves. A bit overwhelming at first. But after a while, I guess you kind of get used to it.
They move very quickly.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh my goodness. Is that what's called
This is kidney goodbye.
a kidney punch?
This fight, Napunya and Francis, was a great fight. Boxer and a slugger.
I found that it was much more graceful and more artistic and more exciting than I expected it to be.
And I think I have a better respect for the sport now after seeing it live.
The Kenyan was a good counterpuncher. The Canadian was more aggressive, a little wilder.
I really followed the fellow from Kenya because he had seemed to have so much finesse and so much class.
You can feel the increase of excitement in the audience.
There. He really did.
Should he win tonight,
You must win this round. You must win this round.
the international recognition which he'll receive by winning the British Commonwealth title,
You win the round, you win the fight.
he's going to become above and beyond a $5,000 fighter per fight.
This is it, Barrington. Just 3 minutes.
Immediately his purses will triple.
You can do it. You can do it.
It's up to the Canadian to beat him decisively because the Canadian is the challenger.
Yes.
Champion. If it's a close fight, will be given the benefit of the doubt.
I thought it was even. I had trouble round to round deciding who was ahead.
It's not bedtime yet.
It's starting to sound like a fight show. Once the fight started, I was actually sort of cheering for the Kenyan. But I sort of inclined towards Francis later in the fight when it became clear that he wasn't as elegant a fighter, but he was a wonderful little hard hitter.
I really enjoyed it. I would certainly watch another fight.
119.
Well, the winner won. No disputing the winner won.
All right. We did it. We did it.
Canada's got a Commonwealth featherweight champion. Let's hope they make use of it.
Pepsi, Right Guard deodorant, and Canadian Airlines will return in a moment.
Nothing you ever experienced. You can't imagine. You just can't imagine.
The punch that knocked me out on this one particular occasion I did not see.
Somebody hit me, you see stars. Like your mind went blank for about 10 seconds.
next thing I know, I was waking up, and the first thing I could see was the ring lights glaring down on me. Your senses come back, and you sort of attempt to get up and continue.
Boxers and writers will tell you that reality begins inside the ring. You check your fear outside the ropes, and then stand face to face with an individual whose sole purpose for the next 3 minutes is to hit you as many times as he can. That in itself is hard to imagine, and it's probably something you and I will never have to go through. But in Montreal, we took the opportunity to record an individual's first encounter with reality in the ring.
Steve Hylamurdis is 17 years old and a grade 11 student at Sir Winston Churchill High School in the north end of Montreal. He lives about a 5-minute walk from Russ Anber's boxing club, Ring 83.
Just me and my friend just walked around, and we saw the building, and we just came in to take a look, and kind of liked it. So the next day we came back and we got signed up.
That was exactly 1.5 weeks ago.
So have you actually hit anybody yet?
No, not yet. Just punching the bag, stances, shadow boxing, that's about it.
Don't panic.
We arranged with Russ to come back the next night and record Steve's first attempt at sparring.
He's learned how to stand, he's learned how to move, he's learned how to block and throw the jab. So that's what probably we're going to limit the sparring to today. That's it. Keep your chin down.
In the 24 hours since we first talked to Steve about entering the ring, his attitude has changed.
This is my first time going into the thing and into a ring, and I've seen Herc fight, and kind of nervous.
That's it.
Steve's sparring partner will be Hercules Cavellos, who at 16 is a year younger than Steve.
Herc doesn't need any, he won't get hit.
5 years ago, at the age of 11, he walked into the same gym for the first time, just 2 days before a local tournament.
So Herc said, well, what about me? And I said, well, what about you? And he said, well, I want to go. I said, well, you can't go. You've only been in the gym for 2 days. He said, no, I want to go. I said, all right. He seemed like a cocky kid. And at the time, he used to get into trouble at school and whatnot, you know. And so we took him to the tournament, and he ended up winning the tournament. And he was named most outstanding junior B boxer, outstanding 11-year-old of the tournament.
Today, Herc Cavellos is one of the top junior boxers in the country.
I like fighting. I started up a lot of fights when I was a kid and everything, and I figured in the ring at least I could do it legally and everything. So I had a friend who told me there's a gym over here, so he brought me over here. We were around 10 kids. I was the only one who stuck around. The only reason I stuck around is because, well, I've learned a lot in here. I've learned to love the sport and everything, you know.
Now, obviously, if I was to turn Herc loose on Steve, then that would totally defeat the purpose, because Herc is so much better than him, and then even Steve, who's a good prospect, will become the victim of the closed eyes, head turned, all that kind of stuff, you know, because he really wouldn't know how to handle what is coming at him. But if we control it, so next time he's overcome one stage, we can move on to something else. So that's it.
Have you ever been hit before?
No, it's gonna be my first time now.
When I put the new kids in, and it's like their first time boxing, and I put them with a guy like Herc or an experienced guy, I usually like them to go without the headgear, because the headgear gives them a false sense of security. All day he was expecting to wear a headgear, and now he's not. So the first thing that has clicked into his head is, uh-oh, you know, panic. You're here and he hits you. So that's the way I want his mind. I want him thinking, I want him alert. He doesn't have that protective. He's got to rely on his skills to protect himself. Relax, you're getting panicky for nothing. Look, Herc hasn't even moved. You've taken 500 steps in the meantime.
I noticed how important the footwork is in the ring, because I'm like, while dodging a few punches, I'm sure that Herc could have came in and punched me very hard.
Back him up, Herc. Don't panic.
Remember the most getting pinned on the ropes. Having to block. It's kind of scary.
If you let your glove get too far away from you when you're here and he hits you, you end up hitting yourself, okay? The most important thing I want to work on is their defense. That's it. Now the other side. I want to expect the guy to be a killing machine and my guy to be able to control it. Even though he doesn't win, he doesn't get hurt, doesn't get hit, doesn't get knocked out, is able to go the distance. Hold him on yourself. See, if you let your, that's it, hold it on yourself so it provides a cushion. Yeah. When you got a kid who can go in there fully confident that he can control and not get hit and slip, block the thing, bang, let him know you're right there and you can't be moved that easily, right? You can't just block it and be bouncing off the rope. And he feels comfortable in there with no matter who's in front of him. Wham, now he goes down to the body, you drop the elbow, wham. Well, from that point, you can just keep building and building and building because the guy's confidence keeps getting there. Wham, wham. You got it? You see how you don't panic? So that's my main goal, is that they can be really confident in there and blocking, 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 and feel comfortable doing it. Good. Roll. Bang, bang, bang. Now, it's like second nature. The hand just turns and they block the punch. That's what I look for. Time! Well, you survived. That's very good. Now we'll see if you come back tomorrow. Okay. Out of the ring.
Just after we visited with him, Herc Cavellos went to Sarnia, Ontario to compete in the National Junior Championships. He placed second. And just before going to air, we checked with Steve Halamourdis in Montreal, and he's still going to the gym almost every day. Two different people on different life tracks, both drawn to the magnet of boxing.
Like, I'm not really scared about getting brain damage yet, because my opponents we don't hit that hard right now. But I'm worried about getting hit in my nose. I don't want it broken.
Brain damage aspect and all that, you're not going to get too much of it. Not in amateur boxing. You have, I mean, sure, there'll be isolated incidents, but nothing more.
We used to think that a knockout was just a knockout. A concussion was completely reversible. But there's good evidence now that that's not the case. And every time someone's knocked out, they suffer a little bit of irreversible damage, and that adds up.
The hundreds and hundreds of amateurs have gone through the system, and some have become businessmen, and some have become lawyers, and other ones have just become your average, worker, blue-collar worker in our society. Those individuals are totally forgotten. The only ones that get the press, the individuals that have had a tragedy happen to them personally.
People look at it saying boxing gives brain damage, but a lot of people are out there doing drugs and destroying their brain the same way, but they're not getting paid for it.
If a fighter does absorb too much punishment, it can cause brain damage. No question about it.
I have faith in the doctors and the ringside officials not to let me fight if there's something wrong with my brain.
Adele Lubell wrote an article in the Physician and Sports Medicine Journal on chronic brain injury in pro boxers, and the fact was they were fighting so often, so frequently, and that's why they were getting hurt. So I think what we have to do is implement those measures we have in Canada, detect those people who would be at risk. And the ones that you want to know who are at risk are the SIS syndrome, the second impact syndrome. They go through a bout, they have a concussion. It wears off. Then all of a sudden they go into a second bout, they receive a relatively harmless blow, person drops to the floor with fatal results or near fatal results. Not peculiar just to boxing, but also to hockey, North American football. The SIS syndrome as detailed by Robert Boyd of the United States. This is what you want to pick out.
The life of a world-class amateur boxer has almost a monastic quality about it. He must devote his entire day to developing his body and mind for his vocation. Greg Johnson is one of 12 amateur fighters on Canada's A team. 2 years ago, Greg left his home in Kitchener, Ontario, to follow his trainer to Montreal. We spent a few hours with him in the northeast end of the city, where he lives in a basement apartment.
Most boxers are supposed to be tough guys.
Greg is a power puncher.
The girls say, your hands are so soft.
With the power right hook, he knocked out the Australian silver medalist.
Inside the ring, we're tigers, and outside, we're sheeps.
It's very seldom that a guy stands in front of him.
Knitting comes from my ex-girlfriend. She taught me that to keep my hands off her, right? Because while they were knitting, my hands were working overtime. But I got into the sport, first of all, to learn to defend myself. Of course, my parents were totally against the sport. But when they realized that I was a good technical boxer and wasn't getting myself hurt too much, then they said it was okay.
Scoring with that jab.
Mom, she's the most beautiful lady in the world. She's very supportive, understanding. but I never ask her for advice because she never gives me advice. She has confidence in me. A lot of times, I tell Mom, you have 5 other kids at home to look after. Don't worry about me. But she's still there mailing the checks. I'm a CT member, which gives me an allowance of $450 a month. My rent is $280, which is really good for Montreal. So that leaves me with a little bit more, a little extra to pay for my phone bills. And then there's food. One can get a part-time job, but
He couldn't keep a job very long because he was traveling too much. He can go away 4 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time, sometimes 2 months at a time. So it was difficult.
During his daily training session, we were mesmerized to see him turn a simple exercise like skipping into artistic expression.
Good.
I want to win an Olympic gold medal because I feel that is the greatest accomplishment that an amateur athlete can accomplish. This book, it helps me to prepare me for '92. All these mistakes that I made here, I hope that I will correct them, look back at them, and adjust myself so that it doesn't happen here.
While we visited with Greg, we learned that over the past few years, he had an ongoing rivalry with 24-year-old Ron Paskey. The two had beaten each other at other national tournaments. They met again at the Commonwealth Games team trials on December 9th, 1989. In the third round of that bout, Ron Paskey fell into a coma. Understandably, Greg did not want to talk about the accident. But then later on, while showing us his boxer's diary and without further prompting from us, he began to read the entry of that fight.
Paskey fought 2 bouts prior to fighting me. His bouts were fought on Thursday and Friday, which didn't give him a lot of time to recover from the accumulation of the punches which he had taken. Our bout was very close. I was winning a close decision, beating him with the left jab. I switched to the southpaw stance, threw the right hook, and dropped Paskey to the canvas. After the 8 count, I stormed at him, hit him with 6 punch combination, which might have connected. The others blocked. The referee then mistakenly deducted points from me, accusing me of a low blow. During the deduction of my points, Ron Paskey groggily wobbled over, trying to hit me. Therefore, the referee was finished his 8 count. The referee then instructed Ron to move back, as he did, and Ron then fell backwards to the canvas. And 15 minutes later, he was then taken to the hospital on a stretcher and went unconscious in a coma.
That was 16 months ago. At the time, doctors gave Ron Paskey a 90% chance of dying. In fact, a Vancouver newspaper even reported that Paskey had in fact died. But today, here in St. Catharines, Ontario, we have found an entirely different situation. Ron Paskey, with the help of his parents, continues his fight.
He had a brainstem injury. The brainstem is like on this side of your head, and it controls an awful lot. It controls your speech, your balance, your swallowing, digestion, coordination. It really controls a lot.
Hello, Ron.
Oh, you're right, man. Give him 5, man.
I'm right here. It's nice to see you.
How we got in a box, and he used to come home with China from school all the time. So he said, Dad, teach me the fundamentals. Ronnie was determined. He said, Daddy, I'm going to be with the best of them. You saw the fight?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't much of a hit.
No, it was actually quite surprising. With I think the shock of it occurring, everybody couldn't understand exactly what was happening at the time.
It was not a hard fight. The one before that was a very hard fight.
It's a fluke, you know. It happens. Sometimes you get punched, you get too many hits, and But I regret now this and that, you know, because I figure, well, he was in it. Maybe if he wasn't, but then he could have got it in hockey or
Oh, you have that personality.
or soccer or anything. You know, it's.
Even driving a car.
But
It could happen in anything. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. You could trip over a step and hit your head and end up.
It was
with,
just a bad,
you know,
bad break.
Life.
Well, when you look at the recovery that he's made so far, what's the long-term prognosis?
I figure maybe 2.5 years he should be all right, but only his blinkers, you know, can't see. And they give us no hope on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then they told us, Barnes sometimes says he sees light. So they told us in Miami, he says, don't give up. If he says he sees something, believe him, because anything is possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wasn't that much for praying, but I pray every night.
I feel confident he's going to do fine. He's come a long way, and he's really he tries very hard. He's very cooperative.
Okay, man, come on. Get a hold of the chair and push yourself up. Come on, you can do it. Get up. That's my man. Okay, come on. I'll help you out, man. I'll help you. Open the door, Joan.
I guess we're both the same type. We're fighters. We're survivors. We tell him he can't do something, he's going to do it. He's a fighter.
Keep breathing now, man.
I know that young people, no matter what sport they go into, if they make up their mind to do something, there really isn't anything you can do except warn them.
He won the Gold Gloves 5 times. He won the Golden Boy twice. And he won the National once. Him and his brother. Who's number 1? Let's see. He's my main man, eh, Rock? Right up. We always love you. We're going to stay with you all until you get better. And who are you going to look after us after, eh, Ron? That up, boy.
What frustrates him more than anything, do you think?
Not seeing.
He's coming, and you're getting better every day.
He'll say it often, you know, like, I can't see, the TV's on, I can't see it, you know.
Now, do you take him every day for rehab?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Sometimes on a Friday. But then I take him for a walk all the way around the block. The people are all looking, and they say, way to go, way to go.
You still like to fight?
Yeah. You're not going to fight no more, though, eh, Ron?
Pepsi, it's got what it takes. By Gillette Sensor, for the best shave a man can get. And by Canadian Airlines, now flying out of Terminal 3 in Toronto.
Boxing presents a real paradox in our society. On one hand, its very existence is challenged on ethical, medical, and moral grounds. On the other hand, its most celebrated practitioner, the heavyweight champion of the world, is the highest paid athlete in all of sport. And after all, it is through money that our capitalistic society shows its approval. As a sport, boxing appeals to the athlete who wants to win or lose on his own merit. As a profession, the lure of fame and multi-million-dollar paydays is hard to avoid. Even the promise of a few $100s is sufficient for many. And as for the fans, there's something about the absolute drama of head-to-head competition that provides such a compelling escape from a complex society and the monotony of everyday life. Perhaps that is why in boxing, when the bell rings, it rings for all of us.